Hello, this presentation is going to be an analysis from the 2014 TED Talk sort of showdown between Edward Snowden and the NSA Deputy Director. And I'll be talking about both perspectives, my take on the position. And I think this was really interesting because this was one of the most defining digital age debates about the tensions or the issues between national security and individual rights. The two parties that were involved were Edward Snowden and Richard Leggett. So Snowden was a former NSA contractor, and he actually leaked about 7,000 classified documents in 2013 because he believed that massive surveillance was a violation of our freedom and civil liberties, and also the Fourth Amendment. Um, and Richard Leggett in 2014 was the NSA deputy director. Um, he actually gave a live rebuttal at TED 2014, and his stance was surveillance was actually lawful and overseen, and it was really, really important to national security. So on this slide, we're going to go over Snowden's core argument. So his most powerful point, that was mentioned in chapter 3, was about the ethical foundation of privacy, meaning that privacy isn't just a law, it's not a privilege, it's a fundamental right that everybody has. And Snowden argues that the metadata is really, really revealing. In his PRISM revelation, he showed that the NSA had direct access to different servers, which I think was Google, Facebook, Apple, and a few others. And his biggest claim that was really that we can have both freedom and also national security. So Leggett actually rebutted this live on TED, and the first thing he did was really say that Snowden had some things correct, he had parts that were true, which I think was really mature. But his strongest point was that there was operational damage, and that once the enemy or adversaries knew our surveillance method, they would be able to adapt to work around it. But however, he also had a weak point, which was that he claimed that the congressional oversight was adequate when the Senate Intelligence Committee chair hadn't actually seen the audit reports before they appeared in the Washington Post. So this is my ethical point. So I really do agree with Snowden in his main point. I think he really was right about the problem, and the way he went about revealing it, though, I think was really what was wrong. I understand Leggett's I think I'm saying his name wrong, concerns national security, especially being in the military. I can really see how taking surveillance would actually help, but I think in America we really stand for freedom, and that was kind of supported by what Congress did with the USA Freedom Act in 2015 with the change, which really just proved that constantly surveilling seeing people without them really knowing is kind of wrong. But I really think that the way Snowden shared the information was not ethically correct either. It could have been more limited, and it could have been a little better the way he showed the issue. So this actually connects to what we've been learning, especially in chapter 3 and 4, where in chapter 3 Reynolds kind of talks about privacy and says that it's an ethical right, not just a legal technicality, which I think is really important. And then in chapter 4, we walk through different laws that support this debate, like the FISA or FISA and the Patriot Act, the section 215, and also the Electronic Communication Privacy Act. When we studied these chapters with Snowden's revelations of things that he came to tell everyone, you can see that the NSA was really bending the rules and kind of moving around what was ethically correct. Okay, next we have the research integration, and for this, the first paper I found was surveillance and chilling effects. This article kind of argued that people's sense of being watched can really restrict their digital communication, which supports the argument that mass surveillance can harm democracy as a whole, because people are just going to be more scared that they're being watched. And then the next article was whistleblowing effects in the digital age, which kind of talks about how computer science can help have a anonymous way for us, I don't know, to tattletale, that's kind of a bad word, but to whistleblow. And it argues that anonymity is not enough, and we really need technical anonymity, legal protection, and also organization error culture, which kind of challenges Snowden's approach and the NSA's claim about that internal channels were adequate. So the biblical passage I chose for this week was from Proverbs 31, 8-9, which is, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the right of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly, defend the rights of the poor and the needy." Excuse me. I think this article really aligns with what we're talking about this week, since Snowden really spoke up for what he thought was unethical, and for us, because we didn't know, or for the public back then, because they didn't know all that things were happening, and if he didn't speak up, it would have never been revealed. Next is the current status. So the U.S. Freedom Act, Congress banned the bulk of collections of phone records in direct response to the revelation, which is a big win for civil liberties and really freedoms. And then in 2022, for Russian citizenship, Putin granted Snowden Russian citizenship, and critics argues that this kind of undermines his credibility and raises questions about his information being used by our adversaries, especially with what's going on in the world right now. And in 2024, Section 702 expanded, and Congress, this was Section 702 of the FISA, and the law enabled much of kind of what Snowden exposed the last one was the charges are still standing, and Snowden really remains charged under the Espionage Act. No pardon has been issued, so if he was in the U.S., he said that he would return for if he was guaranteed a fair trial. Sorry. The way each presenter went up and presented the idea was really important because it's a court of public opinion. So Snowden's claim was really kind of academic in the way he presented his claim, but his physical presence in Russia was kind of a visual, like a reminder that he was a fugitive, and like it's like willingness to say like that Snowden had good points was really smart and earned him respect and kind of credibility. But his like him not being able to defend the oversight claim credibility was kind of damaging to the NSA's institutional standing. So personally, I think there are a lot of times in life where I think the legal and ethical stance really don't align, especially like this case we're talking about today. And this kind of, well, not really exactly like this, but this something similar to this happened to me my freshman year of college, where AI was like completely allowed in the class. We could use it anytime we wanted for coding, but I didn't really feel ethically okay with this because I was supposed to be learning how to do it myself. If I let AI do it, it wouldn't be learning. So although I didn't judge the other students for doing it, I myself limited how much I used AI in the course. Okay, now if I was in their shoes, this is what I would have done. I would have like documented everything because I think without a paper trail, you can't really like prove anything. And then the next thing I would have done is something we learned in the military, which is the use of right chain of command. So instead of just going to the public directly, or I would raise concerns through like the right channels, which I think in this case would be the inspector general and also talking to lawyers. The next thing I would have done is if the chain of command fails, I would work with journalists to make sure the way we're like presenting this information isn't endangering anyone and to only show what proves like what was bad. And then the last thing I would do is kind of what Snowden is doing. I would return for a fair trial and kind of face what I did if I was put on trial. This video kind of ran a little long, but here are the key takeaways. I think one is privacy isn't like it's not negotiable; it's an ethical right. Next is that Snowden was really right because he supported this, and this was really shown with the change in the 2015 USA Freedom Act. Show the Congress agreed that privacy is extremely important. But I do want to say the next point is that Leggett really did have a point. Sometimes we have to compromise between our privacy and national security, but I think this wasn't really a compromise. This was just saying we were compromising, but not really just we were not protecting the privacy that well. And then section 702 reminds us that the surveillance is still here, it's still an issue, there's still a fight to be done. And finally, as IT professionals that are also Christian, and as a Christian myself, Proverbs 31, 8 to 9 really calls us to make systems that really protect human dignity and are ethically correct, and not just ethically correct, but biblically correct as well. Thank you.